So China has built big dams, tried to affect the river systems in Mekong and other big rivers, and blackmailed Southeast Asian economies, countries, sir. My question to you is, what stops China from doing the same to India when it has done the same thing in Southeast Asia in multiple ways, sir?
I think, as was already said by Assam Chief Minister and my co-panelist, the precipitation or the rainwater flow in case of the river that is called Yarlung Tsangpo in China, then it becomes Brahmaputra in India, and Jamuna in Bangladesh before it joins Ganges. Chinese share is, as the Chief Minister also said, is between 30 to 35%. Bulk of the precipitation happens in Indian side of Northeast, which you also mentioned in various provinces of Northeast. So it is India that contributes large amount of water that flows in Brahmaputra and then goes to Bangladesh. Let me also underline the fact that comparing Indus with Brahmaputra is nothing but foolhardy barbos. They are absolutely not comparable. They are apples and oranges. Indus Water Treaty has been celebrated as a model of water sharing around the world. We have no such arrangements when it comes to China, India, and Bangladesh. We had some understanding agreement in 2006 on creating hydrological data to be shared between May and October, which has happened extremely erratic. And then, of course, we had also set up expert level mechanism to have discussions, which has also become dysfunctional. So fundamentally, last time in December of last year, the special representatives, Ajit Doval from Indian side and Wang Yi from China, had discussed the water sharing issue, because at that time, in that month only, Chinese had approved construction of not just theirs, but world's largest hydropower project, very close to India's border on Yarlung Tsangpo, which becomes Brahmaputra as it enters India. So that, I think, is an issue between China and India. And that again is fundamentally because this Eastern Himalayan syntax is the most vulnerable, most unstable region of planet Earth. And there could be glaciers retreats, as you mentioned. You could be having lake outbursts. That could make dams fail in certain situations. And if you're building potentially a dam of world's largest size, and imagine this is a 50 kilometers region in that bend where water falls about 2,000 meters. And it's a very unusual situation. And if Chinese are trying to build world's largest dam here, nature could be their biggest enemy, and India will be the one to get impacted through that. Otherwise, Chinese officially, let me say, have never used that water threat against India because they cannot. I mean, there is absolutely no water that they can hold and flood India, except, minor. If they build a huge dam like this, then maybe potentially they can withhold certain amount of water and then release it when we don't need it. But that's very limited and 30 to 35% of precipitation that happens. So, people who are trying to create a narrative that Chinese will do something that India will do to Pakistan is absolutely foolish, because India has been extremely generous in creating that water sharing arrangement with Pakistan. And right now it is only held in abeyance. India has not denied water to Pakistan right away. And that, comparing it to what China can do to India is I think, at best, foolhardy is something that I can say. So there is no fundamental threat that can occur by Chinese withholding or releasing the floods, except that the dams that they're building, which is in conversation between India and China at the level of special representatives, potentially that can be very, very dangerous project to build in that very, very unstable, fragile region of Himalayas. And that is an issue which India has already taken with China. So I don't think there is any validity in making that comparison of what fundamentally a very senior former translator of Deng Xiaoping, the paramount leader of China, Victor Cao, he apparently said on television that India should not do unto others what it doesn't want others to do it to itself. Is absolutely, I think, useless kind of a comment to make. He's known for his radical views. So he has shot up something which is to create just unnecessary attention or controversy. But China, remember, officially has never threatened such thing, because they know they cannot, and India knows that they cannot fundamentally threaten restraining or releasing of floods of this particular river on India. And issue which is separate about dams, that is already in discussion between India and Pakistan. I don't think Chinese are contemplating, hallucinating because it's not possible. They're not hallucinating any such exercise. And Pakistan is just trying to showcase, build that China is their friend and might do few things. Chinese are extremely sensible, and I don't think they will create problem with India just to placate some leaders or even military in Pakistan.
So the
despite
question,
their very close relations.
so the question, Mr. Joshi, is that Professor Singh, you're saying that China has no such plans, but my question remains the same. But why is Pakistan behaving so nervously? I mean,
Let me answer that. I do want to answer that question. Pakistan is paranoid because India has been extremely generous and considerate, and therefore there is a dependence relationship. And India, if India starts behaving like China does to India, then it could create enormous problems for Punjab province of Pakistan that dominates Pakistan politics. And in that sense, because they are used to a very stable relationship where India has really been abiding by the promises that it made during the Indus Water Agreement, and Chinese have never kept any promises. They refuse to even supply hydrological data, which is supposed to be shared between May and October. And therefore, once India's dependence is low on China, therefore vulnerability of India is also low. Pakistan's vulnerability is higher because their dependence is higher. And that generosity is what makes them paranoid, because India could withhold that generosity potentially if Pakistan doesn't behave the way India wants them to behave. That is why the paranoia.
And sir, before I let go of you in closing the discussion, sir, we live in a time of global warming. Water is a very scarce resource, whether it's the Indus Basin, whether it's the Gangetic Basin, or whether it is the third pole. Do you think in future this is going to be a new fault line, at least specifically in context of South Asian politics, sir?
I think if countries start behaving hegemonic, there's a whole subject of hydrohegemony which we study these days, that could be driven by geopolitics and could create tensions. But if you look at water as a natural resource, bulk of this water simply goes into oceans, and therefore better management of water is what would be required. There is enough water right now for countries to share and prosper and use it. Better mutual understanding, better partnerships, better sharing of data, and better management, conservation of water is what would be required for both upper riparian, lower riparian states to manage that resource much better. And I don't think there is dearth of resource as of now, but it's the politics that makes problems very often, because if you hear Bilawal Bhutto lately talking of India weaponizing water, whereas nothing such has happened. Pakistan's water share has not been stopped by India. It's only held in abeyance as of now. If need be, India could potentially interpret those same clauses of Indus Water Treaty maybe slightly differently, and of course talk in terms of India's own needs and so on. But I think it's the discourse and narrative that creates tensions. If you talk to some experts who deal with water resources, they believe that there is enough water and only better management of water is what is required, and that requires better relationship between upper riparian and lower riparian states, which in this case of between China and India and between India and Pakistan is something which is not there in that sense.
Thank you both of you for joining me. This is